Nice to meet you today. I'm Krzysztof Białek. How does it work? Not using Mac daily. All right. So I'm a Ruby on Rails and JavaScript and mostly Ember developer at Rebased, which is one of the sponsors today, and co-founder at Kontakt.com, which is online interactive platform for learning programming. And I also am a mentor on Rails Girls Warsaw. And today I would like to tell you something about Ember 2.0. So tell me, again, who is using Ember? It's not so bad. So this is for you. And who is using React? There will be something, just a bit. And Angular? Okay, maybe maybe we'll give Ember a chance after that. Okay, Ember. Why we like Ember? Like other JavaScript frameworks, it allows us to construct a really nice, fast, and snappy user experience in our application. Ember with its counterpart Ember CLI, command line utility, which helps organizing projects. It's very nicely organized. The structure is clear, and it's easy to work in such projects. It's also quite easy to learn, at least the basics, so you can start creating your first Ember application pretty soon. So making to-do app the most obvious choice for learning something is quick. And there's Ember data, which is really great when it comes to communicate with backend servers. In case of Ember, mostly Ruby on Rails servers. So it integrates seamless. So you really doesn't need to write any boilerplate code to communicate to your server, fetch data, update data, and delete whatever. Yeah, but is it really so true? Is everything about Ember so great? At least for the early versions of Ember. Let's say what my cat has to say about it. No. So, what's wrong? I will refer to versions prior to 1.13. It has problems with rendering where there is a bigger set of data, like big arrays, or there are a lot of properties in the template that need to be observed, and template need to be re-rendered when something changed. It tends to get slow, and it's really not nice anymore. Yep. Okay, there's more. Views. So if you don't know Ember, then you don't know what views are. But for all that use Ember, so there are views and components which encapsulate some behavior, and they are connected with some template, like a list, some kind of list with all the behavior and functions like sorting and stuff. So while we have components which are pretty concise and they have their own context, they are closed, there are also these views which they were devised to do similar stuff, but their context is unclear. They can access controllers, they have their own properties, it's kind of mixed. And personally, I don't use them, I don't like them, and I never really knew why they are there. And there is, of course, lots of magic, like in all JavaScript frameworks. Not so much as in My Little Pony cartoon, but still. So like two-way bindings of properties, and computed properties which can be observed, and it can be chained with other observers and stuff. And at some point, you don't really know any longer what's going on. And there is the Ember data, which I mentioned, and Ember CLI. which have different versions. They were developed at different pace, so they are not the separate version is not really compatible. There might be some issues that are hard to find and hard to fix. Okay, so there is this thing called Ember project. So by the definition from the core team, starting from version 2.0, all of the tools that are included in Ember environment, so Ember CLI, Ember Data, Core Ember, and a few more, they will be developed at the same pace. All of them will be developed. The new versions will be released in the same time, so you will be able to have everything at the same version, and when you need to update, new updates will be available for all of them. So it might look like you need to update more, even if you don't think that it's really necessary. But in the end, as the code is from these different tools, it's used in the one place, so it will save you time to update everything at the same time. So yeah, so actually, the Ember 2.0 doesn't ship any breaking changes, many features. It's just, like I said previously, it's a milestone from which the development will be started, and it mostly removes some deprecated behavior, which were deprecated by 1.13 version. So what's the biggest change between 1.12 and 1.13? It's the new rendering engine, Glimmer, which vastly boosts performance. And I will now say why it's that. But before, small digression. And this year's, because the Ember 1.13 was shipped in June, so it's quite young. And on this year's, on EmberConf, on Keynote, Yehuda Katz had this talk about the performance of the Ember, because they were referring to some experiment that there were 3 applications which heavily relied on re-rendering. They were monitoring databases, and so it was a long list, constantly changing. And these 3 applications were written with React, Angular, and Ember. So React was the fastest one. It was really fast, lightning fast. Angular was fast. And Ember was really, really slow. Like, it even didn't trigger popovers when you tried to hover on some of the records that were flowing through the screen. But that was before the Glimmer. So it was rendering everything, and it wasn't really performant. So, and Glimmer and how it renders templates, it's kind of inspired by how React do that. React is creating virtual DOM, and then it's checking if something changed in this virtual DOM, comparing it to the real DOM, and then just change node. It's doing that node by node, and then just change what it needs to be changed. So it's fast. Glimmer does something similar, but as we have these curly braces to inject our Ember code, so the engine knows exactly which part of the template needs to be observed. So if I have a small div with some nodes inside, I need to observe enabled, name, and details. So on the first rendering, Glimmer is creating also virtual representation of DOM, and then just checks each of the properties, and if it changes, let's say that in this object that is on the top, enable it, change it to false, Then it notes that, goes to the next property, and when it finishes, it just updates this part of the DOM that needs to be updated. And the same application for the monitoring database, when it was rewritten and updated to Ember 1.13, it was same or even a bit faster than React applications. So that was really great boost in performance. Probably the biggest change between these versions. So what changed and what was deprecated? So no more views, they are gone. So if you are going to start with Ember, you won't need to bother with them. So it's good for you. There are some things like Ember select. So, so it was like how to make a select box in a hard way, but it's gone. And checkbox as well. They are just the normal components, which are easy to write, easy to debug, easy to test. Item controller, so that's not very interesting, really. Yeah, we had this bind author helper, which was used to return some value for class or ID or whatever based on the property of the current context. That was also not really performant, so it was simplified. So you can now just either put property of your component or something into curly brackets, and it will be just evaluated and inserted there. Or you can use, if you want to have conditional class, then you can just use the if helper. So if this property is true, then put this class. If it should put another class, in case it's false, then you can just add it after the space. And this also can be combined with another helper. So I can do like something like if not where not is my another helper, do something. So you can. It's not really good practice, but you can put more logic in your templates. Don't do that too much, please. Oh, yeah. So as you can see on the line 4, there is the angle brackets syntax for the components. That's not shipped with the 2.0. It can be enabled as a feature flag, but this is where the Ember is going to have this syntax for components, which will help all you who use Angular to transit to Ember. But what is important that currently in components, that's how you declare component in Ember, name of the component, and you pass some value to the property of the component title in this case. But the binding was two-way. So if the model name changed from the parent context, the title inside the component changed. But if you changed the title inside the component, it also bubbled up, which also impacts performance because it needs to be observed two ways. So the new way to do that, it's just it will be one-way binding down. So if you change model name, it will change title, but not the other way around. There are new, well, components have their own life cycle, obviously, and there are multiple hooks you can hook into, and there are more added in the Ember 1.13, which did init attributes is kind of cool because it fires just after all of the attributes you passed to the component were initiated. Nothing else was done at this point. You can change something with them, do something with them, and you don't need to think about what else might be fired at this time. And second point was really annoying. Helpers, components, they had to be named with at least 2 words. So you had to put a dash between them. So we've had simple helper that should check if something is false. You could call it not helper. Then in previous version you wouldn't be able to do that. So it would be like if not, which looked silly, combined with if helper, that would be if not, something. So that's pretty small, but really nice change. Services, if you use services in Ember, then you are able to inject them into helpers if needed as well. There's another cleanup thing, because components have their properties that you declare inside the component, plus they have these properties that are passed when the component is called, title in this case. And so until this syntax comes in, they both were called the same. So you do like this get title or this get some internal property. So it kind of you didn't know from first glance if this is its internal property or if this is some value passed by the parent context. So all of the values that are passed to the components, they will be stored with the authors property, and you can add they're just objects, so you can get access to it by doing this authors title instead of this get title. This get is still for the internal properties of the component. Each in helper to iterate over the pairs of the property and the value of the property in the given object. Something which I used really a lot in Ruby. I really miss that in Ember, so that's kind of nice. There's also get helper, which when you give it an object and key, then or name of the property, it will return the value. It also accepts the function that will return the key of this of the property you want to get. Okay. Like I said before, the one-way binding in this new syntax of components, it's boost performance, but sometimes you will want to update your parent context with the value. So I would like to, when my counter internally changes count, I would like to change this activated count from my parent context that calls this component. So there is a mute helper which packs this passed value in an JavaScript object that contains this value and a function, callback function, which is called when it's changed and updates the context. So it's handy in case we really need to do that. And there is one more really important thing in the Ember 2.0. No more support for IA8. Okay, so if you need to upgrade, maybe you will, if you start new Ember project, then you will go from Ember 2.1 probably at this point. But you might land in a project which is prior to version 1.13, which sucks. So it needs to be updated as soon as possible. So how to do that? First, 1.13 isn't removing anything, so it will just display you logs with tons of deprecations in the console, really a lot of them. So you need to fix them before upgrading. There are tools that help with that. Then you need to update all packages, plugins you use in the project because they probably all either were updated to Ember 2.1, 2.0, or they need to be updated, or you need to look for something that ships similar functionality, but it's up to date. Otherwise, it won't work. It will break your project. Then you will need to remove all the views, rewrite them into components, because they will be removed. And then, if you update to, when you clear all the deprecations, and you update to 2.0, it will just work. It will remove the obsolete functionalities, but you are not using it anymore, so it's simple. If there are no more deprecations, then everything should be smooth. Yeah, but if you need to keep some of the deprecated functionalities, there are plugins that adds this to Ember 2.0 if you really, really need. And there is this Ember CLI deprecation workflow, which helps with fixing deprecations. You just install it, then run your test suite, and maybe go through the application if the test suite doesn't cover 100% of your features. And it will gather all the deprecations. You then put them in the files, and you can. They will be removed from the console log, and you can work one by one. Okay, so then a bit about Ember data, which also recently was 2.0 was released to match the Ember core. Previous version used the find method to communicate with the server or the internal storage or whatever you are using to store your models. And it was fine to extract, get all the models of the type. It was fine to get one model of the type by ID, and it was fine to get all models by some query. So 3 find methods for which are named the same for 3 different behaviors. So it was deprecated. And there are distinction between async calls to servers, which first try to get the cached data you have and use it, and in background it updates with the server, and when the response came, then it will update the template and all the components that you need to update. And this is find record and find all. And there is also synchronous query for the store, which will wait for the response before proceeding. That's pick, record, pick all, plus query record and which query one record, and query which query more than one record. And so there is, it's distinguished in clear way. So when you see it, you know what the functionality is. Yeah. Okay. Where you can go next from this? So of course, there's emberjs.com, which has its blog, which is a great resource if you want to learn something more about Ember or start with Ember. Tutorials and guides are also very good, but it's always good way to learn to read the blog and the releases there, because they tend to go into depth into the features of the Ember. Not everything is covered in guides that you might want to know and use. And there is this EmberConf keynote about Glimmer, and slides about Virtual DOM, how the Glimmer is working with it and updating it. So, happy updating, or in case of you that who didn't use Ember yet, please try, give it a try. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions?
Hi. Don't you think that Ember is just transiting into the React, actually, because they introduced the components, they will remove the controllers in a few months, probably. They've changed the rendering engine, and the only thing that is more than React is the router, actually, and Ember data, probably, and I don't know, maybe the component, the computed properties, and from my point, that's all, and maybe the CLI, which is great, but besides that, it's just
well, I think that
changing.
Well, React is very good framework. So I really think they say that they are inspired by something like with Glimmer, but I think that's more than that. With using Ember CLI, which gathers Ember and handlebars and few more components, it allows you to create these projects in a efficient way. It gives you generators and much more stuff. And plus, removing controllers is a way to step towards the routable components. So we don't, as we are focusing on using components to encapsulate features, controllers are not really needed. So their core team is working to ship the components that will have their own roads. So actually, this is a logical step.
Okay, any other questions? So I have one. Oh. Yeah, maybe after you.
Which backend of JSON API you advise?
JSON API. Oh yeah, I didn't say that Ember Data 2.0 with the REST adapter and JSON API adapter, it conforms with the JSON specification now fully. So so you can just push the JSON data into Ember Data and it creates models and whatever. But about backend, well, I only use the Ruby on Rails backend for the Ember with active model serializers, which create JSON data. So.
Okay, thank you.
Well, this is about updating. Krzysztof, I would like to update my project to Ember 2.0. I have it in the further version of Ember, and I have some dependencies. I have some plugins which do not work on Ember 2.0. So do I have to update them manually, change the code so that it will work on 2.0, or just throw them out and find some other components, plugins?
Well, when I've been updating one project lately to 2.0, I had to remove some of the plugins, but for most popular, like translation, so I18N and some smaller helpers and Ember Data, all of them have either are compatible or someone forked the repository and updated it to newer Ember. So I don't think there isn't many plugins that you can't either find updated version or you can update it on your own. Because mainly there were the things like views that were removed totally and it breaks. So if it must be some bigger, either some big plugin that use extensively views and you cannot rewrite it yourself, and so you don't know what to do with that, or there are smaller things like Ember Select or like checkboxes which can be easily changed into components. So actually, I don't think you will. I didn't find any problems with updating and with libraries that aren't up to date. So you shouldn't have any problem as well.
Thank you very much. So any other questions? Okay, so thanks a lot.
Thank you.